There's many different ways to cast the fishing rod, but I think the best way is always going to be what feels most comfortable to you. We're all kind of built a little bit different, but there is sort of some good practices to get yourself into, some good body postures and ways to get your cast further out. So I just sort of want to go over that today. And I think that we're going to start off with the overhand cast, sort of over the shoulder with a spinning rod, which is, I think, the most accurate cast. There is other ways to cast which you can get more distance, but the most traditional way over the shoulder with the spinning rod, I think, is the easiest for everyone to learn, and it is actually the most accurate of all the ways to cast a spinning rod. So let's get right into it. All right, so we just showed up to our spot, getting ready to go fish and take our first cast. But one thing I think is really good practice to get into if you've just fishing an area for the first time, or even, you know, your first couple casts, is really get in the habit of looking over your shoulder before you cast. I cast over my right shoulder, so I'll look over my right shoulder. The reason for that is you don't want to hook a pedestrian if you're in a public space. You don't want to maybe hook a bag that's behind you from another angler. There might be an angler walking behind you and you don't realize. So taking that pause moment before you cast out really is super important and a good habit to get into. You know, when you just sort of throw it back and then take your cast, I mean, you could hook anything behind you. So I really do suggest always taking a moment, and especially if it's a new spot. Take your hand, whatever hand is preferable, whether you're a righty or a lefty. I prefer to take my pinky and put it between the reel seat and have my index finger kind of reaching the start of the rod. But occasionally, if I get fatigued, I'll take my index and middle finger and put it between the two, but really whatever's preferable to you. But I tend to default to my pinky and my ring finger underneath the two. Next, what I'll do is I'll get my line and get it parallel with the guides on the rod. Take my index finger, place that over the line, making contact with the rod. So when you release the bail, the index finger now has the weight. See how it's taking all the weight? If you let go, it'll just let go. But by putting your finger there, you're taking the weight. And it doesn't need to always hold against. A lot of times I will just take the tension of it. You can sort of get more of a spring cast if you do that. But you can just sort of put your index finger on the rod so it holds tension of it. Next, what you want to do, in one smooth motion while making contact with your lure, swing it over your shoulder, get it back. Now with your hand here, your non-dominant hand on the butt of the rod, and your forward dominant hand on the reel seat, together you want to make almost like a tomahawk motion to propel both with your front dominant hand and your butt hand. The two are going to work together. If you just put all the power with your dominant hand, you're not going to get as far of a cast. The two work together. And another thing that works together is your shoulder and body position. Make sure you have an upright posture always. Shoulder injuries are really common in fishing, and I think it's because a lot of people sort of throw their shoulder out sort of like a baseball player. That it's pretty common, almost like a pitcher. So I think what you want to do is use your whole body and both hands in line, all with each other, happening at the same time, so you don't throw your shoulder out. I'm going to do one cast in full speed motion so you can see. Close the bail, and we're reeling in. So it's a full body process. It's not just one hand doing it. Don't get in the habit of having your dominant hand cast. Sometimes I see people and they'll cast just with one hand. That's okay if you have like a little, you know, an ultralight or something, you want to do that, or it's just not a good habit to get into. And I also see a bad habit of people throwing it over their shoulder and then casting. That was a bad example. But what I mean is, instead of watching the lure, oh gosh, we're snagged up here. Instead of watching the lure as it goes over their shoulder and then looking forward at their trajectory, they're only looking at their trajectory. You don't want to get in that habit. You won't get a very accurate cast if you do that. You want to keep eye contact of that lure to begin with, look at your trajectory, then launch. It's sort of like a 1-2 system, but it all happens at the same time. And when it clicks with you, you'll get into a rhythm where your cast will feel unique to you. It should feel almost like a pitcher's knuckleball. You know, you're gonna have your own cast. And there's times and places to use, you know, long casts. Like sometimes if you have if you've got a conventional setup and you're on the beach and you're bait casting, the furthest cast you're gonna be able to get is if you leave your bait further out and wham it like that. The problem with that is you're not going to get a very accurate cast, and it only applies to open water. So this overhead cast, and by the way, a bait caster is more accurate. You're going to get a more accurate cast with the bait caster, but they do come with a lot of issues. And I think that if you're just getting into fishing, which I'm sure a lot of you who are watching this are just getting into fishing, I think that the overhand with a spinning rod really is the best way to go. So let me know if you have questions in the comments. I'm going to do another cast for you real quick just so you can see. So going through the motions one more time, we let out about 4 or 5 feet, whatever you're comfortable with. I do a long leader, but some people, if you don't have a leader and you have a short, your most accurate cast is if your jig or your lure is close to your rod tip. That's going to be the most accurate. I do long leaders, so that's why I'm saltwater fishing today. But so here we go. Our line is now parallel with our guides. Pressure on the index finger. Bail is open. We've got all tension on the rod now. Backhand going on the butt of the rod. Dominant hand on the front in the reel seat. Here we go. That's it. Do it one more time for you just so you can see. Got a bunch of grass in front of me, so I'm actually going to take I'm going to take the camera angle from behind me so you can see a little bit better.